Hello, hello, and welcome back to another chapter of One Piece, chapter 1049, The World You Wish For. Um, just a little recap. I haven't spoken about One Piece in a little bit on the channel, but long story short story, we got a whole bunch of things happening. Mainly, Kaido versus Luffy. Luffy's in gear 5th, which is pretty cool, pretty strong, but not completely overpowered because Kaido can still box with it. We've had Raizo try to put out all the fires. We have Momo trying to stop Onigashima from falling, and now trying to move Onigashima out of the way so that then Luffy doesn't push it out of existence. We have Yamato encouraging him. We have Orochi dying again. Hiyori showed up. She somehow made it here. And that's about it for the recap, to be honest. And alright, let's just hop right into the chapter. Oh, and Kaido turned into a fire dragon. I mean, he was kind of already a fire dragon because he breathed fire, but now he's like a fire dragon. If you start the chapter off with Kaido and Luffy clashing, it kind of looks like Kaido's kind of like trying to bite Luffy's arm, well, hand away, and Kaido's as like, I guess he stops biting Luffy's arm, and he's basically like, you come this far, but you're still not gonna be able to change the world, Luffy. And as Kaido's kind of staring up at Luffy, we go into a Kaido flashback. We've been waiting for this. Actually, well, technically we've already gotten Kaido flashback. This is like a flashback, where we get to see Kid Kaido. And you know what? I don't know what I thought he would look like, but this kind of looks like him. And so, basically, to kind of sum up his backstory, because I mean, it's quick, and we touch on a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of extrapolation that you can do on it. But the gist of it is, as a child, he was a child soldier for his country. He lived in Kingdom of Vodka, or Vodka Kingdom, however you want to put it. But basically, he's like a super strong soldier, and this is from even the earliest age of 10. He does have a Kanabo with him and everything. It may not be the same one, but it looks the same. And we kind of cut around his age. So we start off, the initial flashback starts off with him being 10 years old. Then we cut a couple years forward, and basically we have his kingdom having a problem with celestial dragons and paying celestial tribute. And so they're basically like, hey, we gotta go to war. And obviously Kaido's their strongest soldier, so they're like having him participate, obviously. And Kaido's basically like, oh, how come celestial dragons tell you guys what to do? I'm trying, king. What's the deal? And then we got further ahead, and the reason why I presume that we're further ahead is that it kind of seems like he's older at this point. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like he's older. And basically, the king of Vodka, he's basically like, hey, I'm selling you to the government. And Kaido's basically like, I'm not a bargaining chip. And likely part of the reason why they're selling Kaido to the world government is because it seems that for them to get a seat at the Reverie, they are going to be passing off, their strongest soldier to the government so that then they can use him as an asset. But, as is the case with Kaido, and seeing as he's considered to be super strong, he escapes the Marines, and basically you have like Marines talking about how like, oh, he gets caught by them whenever he gets hungry because it's just so easy for him to just break out that he just goes there to kind of like get food and take their resources and stuff. At this point, you can argue we cut further ahead. I don't know if it's been years, maybe just a couple months, but basically he's on the pirate island, the island that Blackbeard's currently occupying, and he's basically like, and people are basically talking about how he's super strong once again, and they mention how he's only 15 at this point in the story. So it's been 5 years since we initially haven't mentioned that he's like really strong, and at this point we kind of see like the beginning of him actually joining the Rocks Pirates, as Whitebeard is basically saying like, oh, you want to become a pirate. Well, Rocks is making a crew, and he wants to meet you, so you're going to be joining. And on the next not even next panel, but like just the next part, we see that Kaido's already joined at this point, and then we cut even further ahead, and he looks older now. I don't know if it's been years again, or if it's just a different angle, and he's drawn slightly different, but they mentioned that at this point they're going to God Valley, and then the next part, end of God Valley, obviously, and then just reveal God Valley. That'd be kind of crazy to do with this chapter, but people are discussing how Rock's Pirates lost, and we have Big Mom basically being like, oh, where did Kaido go? As we know, she's the one who gave him his fruit, so likely this is after the big war. She's kind of wondering like, where did he go? And so we can kind of extrapolate that there's possibly two places he could have gone. Either he was captured again by the Marines afterwards, and then there, actually, this is probably what happened. After that, he probably was captured by the Marines again. Then that's how he met King, and then from there he went to Wano for one reason or another. And anyway, we cut around, and now we're with Kaido in Wano. And he's once again older, and we have the lady with the Bon Clay's fruit, and basically she's talking about how, you know, he's being known as the embodiment of brutality, referring to Kaido. And they're basically discussing how, you know, brutality is how we solve the world's problems, well, how humans solve the world's problems, and how that's the true nature and whatnot. And basically they're just waxing philosophical about how violence is the answer to everything. And then something that I think is really important to notice for understanding this chapter and kind of getting a better idea for who Kaido is as a person, we basically have him giving a speech to his men about how they're going to wage war on the celestial dragons and on the world nobles and celestial dragons by extension. It basically kind of makes fun of the fact that they call themselves peace loving. He's basically like, I'll show them realities of war. As we're coming to the end of the flashback, we basically have Kaido talking to King about Yamato knowing about Joy Boy. And he's basically like, oh, well, you know, you're looking for one guy, and Yamato's talking about Joy Boy, so I think those are the same people. And then he then extrapolates that, oh, I think I have an idea of who Joy Boy could be. And obviously King's wondering who he thinks it is. And Kaido mentions how Oden apparently was trying to open up Wano so that then Joy Boy could be welcomed there. And then we go back to the fight. And obviously we see Conqueror's Haki's clash, and we see one of the Sipo Zero agents basically running for their life, obviously, running away. Probably going to relay this information to the Gorosei and by extension Imo. And then we do a little bit of a cutaway, and we basically see different people and what they're getting up to. We have Momo still trying to figure out how to use his flame clouds, Yamato encouraging him. We have the people in the Flower District, you know, passing off their, I don't even know what to call them. The lanterns? Yeah, that's what they are. We cut back into Onigashima. We see like the water's flowing through and cutting away to like all different people and what they're getting up to. We now even get to see Sanji and that lady who was a part of his fight that he was protecting. You have Frankie also kind of yelling at what I believe is Sanji, just because they're right next to each other, but he could be yelling at any set of comrades, to be fair. We have a shortcut to Kirishiro, Hiyori, and Orochi. Orochi's head still burning off. He's kind of like, his head's burning on the floor. We have Kirishiro kind of comforting Hiyori, you know, it's kind of stressful moment, etc., etc. And we have everybody inside basically be like, oh snap, the island's finally falling. And we have Momo basically be like, oh shoot, that's not good. And from there we cut again away, and we see Luffy's, you know, getting his hand chomped on by Kaido. And Kaido, as he's chomping on Luffy's arm, he's basically like, hey, what kind of world do you want to create, man? You know, let me find out what your world's goals are. And then from there we cut again, and we have basically Momo finally being able to release the flame clouds. He's able to catch Onigashima before it like really falls down. But at this point, it's now out of the way, obviously, because it was falling for a little bit. And from there, we have Luffy's hand and his attack by extension expanding larger, so that then Kaido can no longer grip onto it with his jaw. And then he basically says that the world he wants to create, the world where his friends could eat as much as they want. And then the punch falls through, and he sends Kaido flying into the ground. And as Kaido's going further into the ground, and whatnot, we have him thinking about how he was talking to King, and he basically explains that he thinks Joy Boy is the guy who would be able to defeat him. And you have King basically being like, well, if somebody who can defeat you, I don't think they exist. And that is effectively the end of the chapter. Momo has passed out. Onigashima seems to be on the floor at this point. And that's about it for the chapter. In my opinion, it was a pretty good chapter. Pretty straightforward. Pretty fast though. A lot of things happen. A lot of cutting between different parts. But I think it all kind of flows together in its own little way. I feel like the most discussable part of the chapter is really the flashback. I think the flashback does a pretty it kind of confirms some of the theories. It kind of gives like a very basic idea of Kaido's thought process on things. The way I kind of see it is that Kaido has always been valued based on his strength. As we see in his country, he's revered as the strongest soldier, and it seems like that's kind of the case from him being 10 up until, let's say, 15, because we could argue that by the time he's 15, he sold off to the Marines, and then he just escapes. And then at some point between him escaping and coming back, he's able to end up at Full Lead Island. But again, that could be over the course of years, but I kind of want to say that it's just like he becomes 15, that's when he's sold off, and then between him kind of going back and forth with the Marines, he eventually ends up over here, and he decides that he wants to become a pirate officially. And so then we have him join the Rocks Pirates, likely because of his strength. Then he fights at God Valley, and then kind of disappears for everybody who's on the Rocks crew for the most part. And the next time they find out about him is once he becomes like an official Yonko. And in between that period, we can assume that at some point or other, Marines capture him. He ends up in a testing facility for Vegapunk. He meets King. He eventually escapes, so on and so forth. And you kind of get an idea of more of his ideology, which basically, it seems like, for the most part, it doesn't seem like he's a bad person. Like, even with him like having something against the Celestial Dragons, kind of indicates that, like, his desire is for something that's good in a sense, but his way of achieving that good is through strength and violence. And the reason why, and you can kind of see how like him from a very early age being valued only based on his strength, and for his country to only be able to really solve his problems through using either his strength or his ability to commit violence to achieve the goals they need to have their peace, so to speak, could lead him to, as he gets older, be like, oh, well, if you're just the strongest objectively, then all problems go away for the most part. So towards the end of his flashback, when we see him kind of like rallying his army and basically be like, I'm gonna bring war to the peace-loving nobles, it's kind of like him being like, oh, what's wrong with the nobles is that they've never been a part of war. They never had to deal with violence, so they haven't become like proper people in a sense. once they experience that, then it's kind of like he's trying to bring them enlightenment through war, in essence. And you can kind of say that's kind of how he's viewing it, which is that combat brings enlightenment, and people who are stronger are kind of, it's like a might makes right kind of thing, which it's kind of like a might makes right type of thing, but not as like cut and dry, like, oh, you know, I'm stronger, ergo blah blah blah. It's kind of like a, oh, you know, the combat like makes you better, in a sense. At least that's my understanding of where Kaido's going with his stuff. And I think that kind of goes in line with like why he thinks that Joy Boy is going to be the one who's able to defeat him, because he kind of like has that like might makes right kind of viewpoint, in which he's like, oh, you know, if Joy Boy's supposed to free Wano, I'm holding Wano, so logically Joy Boy has to be able to defeat me. And it falls in line with his ideology that, oh, the person who's able to free Wano from me can be Joy Boy. It has to be Joy Boy, because that would mean they're super strong. And strong people in this world are usually the best equipped to deal with the trials and tribulations that their world has. And that's kind of like my logic of it. And that's kind of it for Kaido. It seems like he's defeated. I have heard people say that it's possible that he will get up again. I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry with him getting punched through the floor. But once again, and it's completely possible for him to get back up. I mean, Kaido has taken quite a bit of punishment. I'm sure he could take a little bit more. The question is, can Luffy continue fighting? I mean, it's possible, but I have my doubts. We have the Zero member who's running away. Obviously, like I said, it seems like there might be some CP0, and not CP0, but just world government discussions at the end of this. But suppose we won't really need to worry about that until like that arc is properly over. It seems like Momo's finally been able to release his flame clouds, but it also seems like he's passed out, so that's dead for him. And outside of that, I think that the arc is over. I mean, the only other thing that I think could possibly like continue this is that one, Kaido gets up, and two, Orochi's still alive. But I'm like, I don't see the point of having him still be alive. I mean, everybody's cut off his head for the most part. A lot of people have already cut off his head, and having other people do it feels like waste to me. It's like unnecessary. It seems kind of weird for Kirishiro to be the last one to cut off his head, but it's also like, you know, do I really want somebody else to cut off his head? Not really. And with that all, I think that's pretty much it for the chapter. With it all being said, leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you dislike. If you have any comments, thoughts, or concerns about the chapter, any thoughts about whether you think Kaido's going to get back up, what you think Luffy will be able to fight Kaido if he gets back up, what's going on with Kaido's backstory, so on and so forth. Or you just want to say nice things to me, that's also cool. Drop a subscription if you like my channel, me, my voice, whatever, like the content. Feel free to subscribe. It's free, don't worry about it. And with that all being said, thank you once again for watching the video, and the doc is out.